This is the Knock&Talk show, an Alio first responder veteran podcast, sharing some comic relief from the street.
Attention veteran businesses. Do you want an easy way to be certified as a veteran-owned business? Do you want a better way to show it off in the same hard-charging fashion as our old unit badges? Do you want an easier way to be found? Get business write-ups, interviews, social media promotion, and more? avboa.net has your six. Get access to over 20 hard-charging digital badges for web and social media shares that shows you're a certified veteran-owned business. You've earned it. Show it off. Visit avboa.net. Use code KNOCK6, that's KNOCKSIX. Get your digital badge today. Episode of the Knock&Talk show. I'm your host, Patrick Faulkner, and today we have an esteemed guest, Ericka Kelly. Retired Master Sergeant out of the United States Air Force and federal law enforcement officer. So, Ericka, thank you so much for coming on the show and being with us and volunteering to tell some of your stories. Why don't you take however much time you need and introduce yourself?
Well, I just want to say thank you first. This is an amazing platform. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. My spidey senses are telling me that it's going to be fun. So be kind and gentle, please.
Yes.
I am Ericka Kelly. I am a mom first. And I know that we're going to talk about titles and jobs and what happened here and there. And that's all good. But at the end of the day, I'm a mom. I am a daughter. I'm a sister. And now that I am out of the military, out of law enforcement, and I am looking at a different chapter in my life as an entrepreneur, business owner, I'm grounding myself a little different. Okay. My identity is, I'll never give up that heart that we have when we're law enforcement or the heart that we have when we wear the military uniform. But my personality is morphing into a little bit more a different awareness and just living my purpose a little differently. So, yeah, here I am.
And here you are.
Boom.
And yeah, boom. That's right. I love it. All of our lives are going to be better and enriched for this time that you spend with us. So I'm super honored to have you here. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but I was also in the Air Force.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. I didn't go any further than my first term, but I was an F-16 avionics technician
Nice.
stationed at Moody Air Force Base from 95 to 99. So
That's amazing.
I have here in my notes that you were actually born in Guatemala. Is that correct?
I was.
Tell us
That's my birth country.
your birth country. Okay.
Yes.
How did you get here to the States?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
Is it?
First question is a tough question. I survived an earthquake when I was 12 years old. At the age of 5, so I'm going back in history now.
Yeah.
At the age of 5, my mom abandoned myself and my 2 brothers. She left us locked into a little shack that we lived. And we survived 7 days with a little bit of water, no food. My grandmother was the one that rescued us, but my mother disappeared. And later, I learned that she came to the United States with a girlfriend. So moving forward to her abandoning the 3 of us so young, and then us going to live with my grandmother, Guatemala went through a huge earthquake. And again, it just, whatever little we had, it was just flat. It just, everything got destroyed. And the news were big enough that it made it to the United States, where my mother already was remarried, had a little girl, had her, I don't want to say American life, but American life. And when she saw the news, she reacted. She didn't think about it. She reacted. And she told her husband, I am going to, so get this, it's crazy. I'm going to go see my mom and see how she's doing. Because her dear husband, John, never knew that she had 3 kids. So when she says, I'm going to go see my mom, he's like, okay, love you. She gets to where we are. She sees the conditions. I'm telling you right now, we had 4 sheets, and that was our home in the middle of the street. And the Red Cross, American Red Cross, is giving us, a bag of beans and a bag of rice so we can survive out in the street. So she sees that, and she makes the command decision to bring us with her, not telling her husband. So we walked, brother. We walked from Guatemala to the States. And it's funny that I ended up being a special agent for immigration, and then a special agent for customs, where we dealt with a lot of human trafficking and human smuggling cases. And here I am as a child doing the same journey that we see in the news almost every day.
Wow. I did not realize that the first story was going to be so heavy.
Sorry.
No. I'm humbled. It's an amazing story, amazing survival story, and to get to the U.S. So young, and I'm sure there were some trials and tribulations going through that and growing up, and then to fast forward to your decision to go into the military. Why did you choose the Air Force?
My first choice was the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And I was too young. I was in school. I think I was 16, and I started looking at when we got to this country, I realized that the military of the United States was different than the military I was used to as a child. I grew up with soldiers on the corner, soldiers, I don't want to say taking advantage of, but taking advantage of civilians a little bit, in which if a soldier said something, you did it. If a soldier wanted something, you gave it to them. And then I'm looking at the American military, and it's like, where are the soldiers on the corners? And I learned in school that the military protected people, protected the nation, not took away from people. Like maybe I experienced in my country a little bit. I felt in love with it. And because of the hard times that I went through, like walking, 1,500 miles, and a pretty horrible childhood of, eating ants and dirt to survive, and a lot of just toxic relationships in my family. And as a young girl, I was the victim of a lot of things. But now here I am in the United States, and I'm falling in love with the thought of being a military member. I don't know why, but it's in my heart. So moving to maybe 16, I was an angry teenager. I was tough, and I wanted to prove that I was tough. So I was looking at the Marine Corps like, that's it. I'm in, and I'm in right now. And I went rappelling, and I did some crazy things to get ready for the Marine Corps. And at the time, my mom went and signed the paperwork.
Okay.
Because I was so young.
Yeah. Okay.
And so she went signed up, and then Ericka, me, ended up being homeless. Again, my mom was not a good role model as a woman. A good role model as a mom. John, my stepdad, never was able to assimilate that here are three kids that he is responsible to take care of now. So it was just a horrible situation. And I saw myself at that same age, 16, 17, homeless in the streets of Las Vegas. And I tell people, sometimes, or I spend years, I should say, years, when people ask me, why did you go into the military or why did you go into the Air Force? Uh, I flat would say education, opportunities, and why not? Why not the Air
Right.
Force? But brother, that's not the truth. The truth is that I was 16 when I met someone that was 32. He was extremely violent. I thought I was going to be killed by my husband. And at the age of 22, not after high school, at the age of 22, um, I'm watching a TV commercial about the Air Force, and I remember my husband reading a newspaper, and I'm sir. I couldn't call him by his name. I couldn't call him hun. I had to call him sir.
Wow.
I had to ask him. It's interesting that I'm talking about this lately, but I had to ask him if I could eat every single day that I was with him. I had to ask him every morning if I could eat that day because that was as much control as he had over my life. And I tell people this, and people are like, seriously? Yes, seriously. I thought it was normal. Again, remember, I didn't have a role model. I didn't have a vision of what good was.
Right. Right.
So to me, that was my normal. So that the beatings, normal. That I ate only when he told me, normal. But nonetheless, there was something in me that said, I want to do that, right? That little spark of having a military life. So I asked for permission. And I remember him saying, do the effing you want. As
Okay.
he's reading the newspaper. He's not even paying attention to me. But that was my permission. And I went to the recruiter, and I do remember him saying how worthless I was and how stupid I was for thinking that the military would take me.
Mm.
And but I tried it. I passed the test. A recruiter said, "We want you," and I remember the conflict, mental conflict I had of me believing I was worthless because that's what I've been told all my life, and then someone else saying, "We want you," and you're worth, being an airman. And I'm like, oh yes, 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 yes,
That
yes,
had to
yes.
feel amazing.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea.
No, I really don't. I mean, I can only imagine how
Oh yeah.
amazing that would
Oh
have
my
felt
gosh.
to get that
It
sort of affirmation.
Yeah, because everything, and I hate to say this, but it's true. Everything in my life, uh, everything in my life, if it would have not been for the military, everything in my life was set for me to die in the hands of an abuser, and or stay in that poor mentality of I can't because, and we just fill in the because
Right.
with a blank anything. But no, I mean, here is this amazing organization saying, yeah, if you work hard, and you prove yourself. And that's all I wanted. I just wanted to prove myself. I just wanted to show the world that I know you think, world, that I'm dumb. I know that you think that I don't have value, but I promise you I have value. I promise you that I have something to bring to the table. And I took advantage of that, yes.
As you should have, for so many reasons. And uh, gosh, again, another story of triumph. So you passed the ASFAB, yeah. Um,
Brother, I didn't speak English. You gotta you I mean,
I
I have, to this day, I, I'm like, God, thank you.
I'm
Because
sure.
I'm struggling with the language. I'm struggling with self esteem. I'm struggling with just having a conversation with another person. Anyway, it was a mess, but here I am.
But here you are. So you pass the ASFAB and you go into basic.
Mm-hmm.
What year was basic?
87.
87. Okay, so you were a few years ahead of me. Only
Long
six.
time ago.
Yeah, I know, but only 6 years before me, so not that long ago in my mind. Um, what was life like for basically a refugee, right? An adult refugee from a foreign country coming in and escaping out of an abusive relationship, getting into basic training, which is typically for most people the the most adversity that they've ever faced. The yelling, the screaming, the mental thought that this person with a round cap, or for the ladies, the bush cap, um, they're gonna beat my ass if I don't, whatever that is. What was that like for you, going from what you were accustomed to now into a controlled environment in the late 80s
Yeah.
as a woman in the
Mhm.
military? What was that like?
Heaven. It was heaven. I mean, oh my, I tell people all the time. Here I am at the airport, going to Blackland. So I'm at the airport waiting for the bus, and I'm looking at everyone, mostly females, getting in,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm like checking them out, but not checking them out. I'm just trying to. It's unbelievable, It's like, am I really here? Am I really here? And then I got on the bus, and then the MTIs are, they started screaming, and I'm like, la la la. This is, like, this is
Whatever.
nothing. This
Whatever.
is nothing, people. And I remember getting off the bus, and the formula, right?
Yep.
The chaotic, go upstairs and do this and do that and get next to a table or next to a bed. And I'm like, okay, okay, okay. But again, because that's my normal.
Right.
And then I hear and I start seeing all these other young women either cry or that panic, like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And I'm staring at that metal bed, and I'm like, this is pretty awesome. This is pretty good. And the MTI is like up and down, screaming, right? And at one point, I do get emotional. That I'll tell you why I get emotional. Not because, I mean, I was excited about the opportunity. Don't get me wrong. I was grateful, but I was excited because I wasn't going to, and I share this quite a bit. I wasn't going to be. My husband used to beat me and then rape me to make up. So I'm standing, man, just staring at this awesome bed. And if anybody's, what bed I'm talking about. It's like
Yes.
crunny
Yes.
metal,
Yes.
but I didn't care. To me, that was amazing. And I'm thanking God, right? And I think at that time I was maybe agnostic, but I was thanking God, right? And I'm thanking God because that's the first night in who knows how many years that I am going to be safe, that
Gosh.
I'm not going to be beaten, that I'm not going to, um, yeah, that I'm not going to be raped.
Wow.
Yeah.
And everybody else in that room was scared to death
Yes, they
that
were
that
poor
they were
little
going to get
babies.
they were going to get beat, for not folding their clothes or not
Yeah,
not
yeah,
opening the foot locker or the wall locker, and
yeah.
and you were in heaven. That's amazing.
It was so awesome. It was so awesome. And during basic training, sometimes on Sundays, just so we can clear our minds, um, go to church, right?
Yes.
Go to church services. And because remember, I was not very religious then, I'm like, I don't want to go to church. And then the MTA is like, go to FN. Right. In those days, oh my
Yes.
gosh, they could
They
physically, they could use whatever language they wanted and they could physically touch you. And I remember saying, I don't want to go. I'll stay here. And then he's like, then you're going to have to, just clean whatever. And I'm like, perfect. Love it. Thank you. I'm so grateful. I'll do the ceilings. I'll do whatever you want me to do. And he couldn't understand why I was like any punishment that he thought was going to be drastic. I was like, I got this.
Wow. I mean, just a polar opposite of what most people experience on their first, the first day, the first week,
Yeah.
the first benchmark in basic training. They can't wait to go get an hour in a church that's quiet and cookies. Because we had, we had, I don't know if you had cookies. We had cookies.
I'm sure they did. I didn't go to church. I just stayed and cleaned. And then when my teammates came back, it was like I felt good. One, because I was grateful. Two, because I took some stuff that they needed to do away from them, so I gave them like white space. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. So my son just finished up basic training in the Army a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I told him was on Sundays, go to church.
Go to church.
For multiple reasons, but if for no other reason, it's an hour to an hour and a half of your time that's quiet.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Drill instructor can't come yell at you while you're sitting in the pew.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like I gave him the wrong advice now.
No. Because I'm telling you right now, the MTI, how they start warming up a little bit. The MTI at one point in time, I remember him saying, "Ericka, do you not want to be away from me? Do you not want to be away from this dorm?" But that was my safe zone. I was just holding on to. That was my safe zone. And I thought, if I leave this, then something's going to happen. If I leave, I'm going to do something wrong. They're going to send me back. So it was a lot of factors that is like, just leave me. I don't want to make a lot of movements.
Right.
Let me just stay here, because I don't want to realize, I don't want you, Air Force, or you, military training instructor, to know that you didn't get a shiny penny when you picked me. I don't want you to know that I'm broken. I don't want you to know that I am not worthy of being here. So I spent a lot of years doing that, being ashamed and hiding and almost like that. What is it called? Imposter syndrome?
Yes. Syndrome. Yes. Yep.
Yeah. How did I get here? Oh, if they really knew who I was, they would push me out. So yeah, it was fun.
While we're on the subject of basic, can you think of any funny scenario, situation? I know that basic was a different animal for you than for most people. And while you're thinking about some funny story that you might recall, whether it was in the dorms or whether it was in the chow hall, whether it was the viper pit that was waiting for somebody not to sit down or to stand up too soon in the chow hall. I'll share a quick story about my basic training. My TI or my MTI was a female tech sergeant English, and the day before we arrived at Lackland, her husband left her a Dear Jane letter on the chimney.
Oh boy.
And she came in like hell hath no fury. She hated men. She hated all of us.
That's right.
And we went through extra everything because her hubby walked out on her. That was our main TI. That was our head TI. We had an associate or another TI that basically took over when, I guess now looking back, she was probably going through therapy or something, because she was rarely ever there. We had a senior airman Martinez, and he was like the knight in shining armor flying in, and he was on the unicorn, and he was there to protect us. Like, she would come in whenever she did come in, she'd come in and throw things and yell and scream, and he'd stand between the two of us.
Oh God.
And I got it, Sarge. I got it. And when she would leave, he'd go, "Oh, shit."
He was getting it too, I'm
Oh,
sure.
I'm sure he was. Afterwards, I'm sure he was. I mean, he was like the dark horse hero in the story, standing between us and her. And she, I guess about week 4 or 5, she sort of mellowed out. She brought us all a bottle of conditioner, even though we had shaved heads and we had had our second haircut by then. She brought us all a little. It was like hotel size. But she
For
brought us,
all of you.
for all of us, because she felt bad that some people didn't have shampoo, and she's like, I know you guys have your head shaved, but you still need to take care of your scalp, and here's some conditioner.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, that was her way of saying I love you guys. I guess, I don't know.
Wow.
So
No.
anything stand out? Is something funny happening in the
Well,
films?
a lot of things stand out, but I don't think they're funny. I don't. Like for me, my brain was scrambled because of the language barrier.
Okay, that's fair.
So I know that, I was 22 and I've been here for a long time, but I'm slow. I'm a slow learner. And English was really, well, still is. I haven't mastered it, but English is really,
Neither
really
have I.
hard. And when you're nervous and you're hypersensitive about everything, and you need to speak in a language that's not your primary language, your brain slows down. Because it's not, it's the conscious mind that's working, not the file that you have had since birth that's talking. So what would happen to me is that I would marching because I'm little. I was either way in the back, like the last one, or I was one of the squad leaders.
Okay.
So it didn't matter because I would screw up every single time. The MTI would say, column left or column right, and and everybody would, right? My brain was still translating. So I was delayed every single time, or even worse, not even delayed in my movement, just go the other way.
Oh, bless your heart.
Oh my gosh. So if I was in the back and I was on the outside, I don't think big deal. But if I was in the 4 rows, if I was there in the middle, then I would screw the whole formation. And if I was in the front and I would screw the whole formation, it was so the MTI would get so frustrated. And remember, I told you that they could kind of physically do things to you.
Right.
I remember, so my MTIs were female staff sergeant, male senior airman. He would have a clipboard, and it's like when he's marching, he has his the clipboard, and then here's Ericka going left or going right the wrong way, and then the corner of that little clipboard. Every time I see a clipboard, I see the corners. I don't know why. Maybe I have scar tissue, and he would go through that, and I don't know how he did it, but he would go right in between my ribs and then push in and go, learn how to blah, 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 blah. And I don't think I learned really how to, or like my brain was able to get faster at analyzing the language maybe 2 weeks before we had to graduate. It was horrible. Wow. Or we have to memorize a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I look at me. I can't. If I get nervous, it's a second language. That look at me. My heart is palpitating now.
Oh,
wow.
Gosh. goodness.
Yes. So it was all, or if they would say something in that, snake pit
Hmm.
in the chow hall, I would blank out. Like I wouldn't, like my tunnel vision would go like, I wouldn't even know what they were saying because my brain couldn't comprehend words anymore. I'm just trying to stand at attention. Am I chewing? Is that why they're here? Because I got up and I'm still chewing? Because remember, you couldn't get up and
Right.
have food in your mouth. So I'm trying to analyze why they stopped me. And in the meantime, they're saying stuff, and sorry, I have no idea of one single word you're saying to me. So
That
thank
was
you so much.
that was probably both a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's what came to mind. What came to mind is
Oh,
just how, I mean, now looking at it from the outside and maybe picturing that formation, um, maybe you can laugh at
I can.
what's happening.
I can.
Oh, yeah,
At the same
yeah.
time, I'm cringing with you because I wasn't the greatest marcher at first, and I was an element leader, very similar to what you were talking about at the front of one of the columns,
Mhm.
and I'm short. I think on a tall day, first thing in the morning with my boots on, I'm like 5'7.5". So, I would stand out like a sore thumb at the front because everybody behind me was way taller than
Oh,
me. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
I get it.
yeah. Yeah, and as an element leader, of course, you're at the front. So at the end of basic training, I was an element leader, and I remember, I remember being an element leader and doing those locker inspections.
Mm-hmm.
And my job was to open the lockers for the MTI. So open the locker, he would look, next locker, right? So as I was opening the lockers, I would kind of like scan the locker and go, oh, and kind of like make quick adjustments if I saw something that was not where it
Very
needed to be.
smart.
And then the MTI kind of looks, doesn't say anything. So I'm like, I'll keep doing it. So that's what I did throughout the whole, inspection of the floor or the flight. And then at the end, he goes, you know that if this was a real world and we were at war, you would have killed all your teammates. And I'm like, how?
Okay.
What are you talking about? And I guess his lesson was valid. His lesson was that because I fixed the errors, they didn't learn from that mistake, and so they would continue to make the same mistake
Mm.
over and over again. So I'm like, I get it. And then, but he, again, because we spent every Sunday together, right? He asked me why I did it, and I said because we're a team. We're a team, so if we all came in together, we all should go, to whatever tech school together as well, and we should all be successful. And he goes, well, all of them are going to be successful, but you are going to be punished for, touching their stuff. And I'm like, cool.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, no worries. But that, even though it's not a funny story, I do find it funny just because I was able, right? That transition or that growth, I was able to have. I want to use the word courage because here is this intimidating MTI, and here I am so insecure about my own shadow, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm growing and I'm changing that I I started, just taking risk because making those little small adjustments, as small as they were, was taking risk, and being able to understand that there's a trade-off, and being able to understand that there was a consequence.
I would absolutely hang the word courage as a badge on that. You're yes, very courageous.
So
Given the scenario and the circumstances. Um, where did you end up going to tech school?
Shepherd. My
Ah,
first
me too.
my first AFSC was to be a medic.
Okay. All right.
So, and that's where the tech school. I mean, Shepherd had a bunch of AFSCs that went there for their tech school, but I was there to be a medic. So I was gone, literally almost a year. Whoa.
Right.
From that toxic environment. If you put tech school for a medic is super long, and then your clinicals and basic training. All if you add all that time, I was gone almost a year.
Yeah, that had to be like when you got out of basic, did you go straight to Shepherd?
Hmm.
Okay. All right. So I
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
started off
Hmm.
at Lackland first and then went to Shepherd, but um when you got to Shepherd and you were starting to get more and more freedom on the base, what was that like?
Um, well, it's something that I never experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a child, being from a very submissive culture, and being from the poor end of that submissive culture, I everything was uh, very tight around me. Know your place. You're a woman. Do this, or don't say, or don't talk. And then obviously the relationship that I shared with my husband, everything was control. Everything about my life was controlled. And there I am at Shepherd, where everybody is partying. You know what I'm talking
Yes.
about?
Yes.
And everybody's going to the NCO club and having fun as young people.
Hmm.
So I had fun. I mean, I not crazy fun like some crazy people did,
Sure.
but I was able to breathe.
That had to be
Um,
just
I was able to breathe. I was able to, and I was still shy. I was still quiet. I was still, do you really want me to be your friend? Kind of attitude. But I had pretty amazing people that accepted me for who I was at the time. And yeah, I had a great, amazing time at Shepherd. Like really, really fun times with really, really good people.
that's great.
Mhm.
And and I'm happy for you. Um, for the triumph of getting into the Air Force, completing basic training through all of the adversity there, and then getting into tech school and being, as you said, being able to breathe probably for the
Mhm.
first time in your life in your early 20s now, and being able to appreciate friendships and being able to go places without permission. That just
Mhm.
I personally can't fathom what that feeling must have been like. I just I don't know.
You know where I went
Kudos
crazy?
to you. Kudos is not even a strong term, you know,
Well, I went a little crazy, my friend, with food.
as you should have.
I mean, I still do. I'm a foodie. But oh my gosh, I loved the thought that I could eat anything I wanted. And that
Yeah.
there was not someone across from me. Oh my gosh, I was telling someone the other day that my husband would uh, take me to a Carl's Jr., Burger King, McDonald's, it didn't matter, and he would order um, a child's meal, a kid's meal, and he would cut the hamburger in half, and then give me one French fry and that little half of a tiny, that little
Yeah.
cheeseburger that you can just eat in one bite.
Yeah.
And that was my meal, while he ate the other half plus whatever else he wanted to eat, his combo, whatever. And yeah, I can eat more than one French fry.
Yes. And
Hmm.
put cheese on it
Yes,
and honey mustard or whatever else it was
and
that you
I did.
I feel
I
like air high
did.
five, It's just God. And everybody knows the Air Force food is better than all the other branches combined.
I
So,
think so.
yeah. So, I
I
mean,
think so.
you probably had like veal parmesan for the first time and steak.
I,
I mean, what was
I
that first
was
steak like?
eating. I was eating like 2, 3. I mean, I was. People were like, "Oh, are you not full?" I go, "I am full."
Damn.
Yeah, it's like I am. I'm just gonna keep eating because the food is there. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Um, where was your first duty station?
Luke, I went to Luke,
Oh, okay.
and that was so amazing. Remember, in order for me to get away from that toxic environment called marriage, not marriage itself, my
No, a
marriage.
lot of people would
Right.
a lot of people would agree with that though.
Let me clarify that. Erase my words. No, I remember I went into the reserve side of the house. So I was gone for a year, but I had to go back to Las Vegas to that husband and that environment. And my first duty station was for me every month to drive from Las Vegas, drive all the way to Phoenix to Luke Air Force Base, do my weekend, and then drive back on Sunday night all the way back to Vegas again. So that was my routine. But again, the month was a nightmare. And then, but I always looked forward to that drive and to spend time with people that loved me and people that I loved, people that fed me goodness. And then every Sunday when I was driving home, it was just that mental preparation to to be nothing again.
Wow. That had to be. I mean, it's already a super long drive, but
Hmm.
on Sundays that must have been just an agonizing
Yeah, it was.
mile after, and knowing you were getting closer and closer to it.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Gosh. So how long did that continue before you were able to break free from that?
Yeah, sometimes people, I tell my story and I say, the Air Force saved my life, and they're like, save your life, like literally saved my life, right? And then people think I went to basic training, tech school, and yay, freedom and growth and development and Chief Kelly, right?
Yeah.
It's like somehow, it's like I leave that situation, Chief Kelly, yay. And no, it was a long process of growth, a long process of being resilient, a long process of being persistent in my journey. But for that specific chapter in my life, I left the environment that I was in at 26.
Wow.
So it was a long time of I mean, I don't want to say that I've been a good liar, but I've been a good liar. Of where is that? You have a bruise in your arm. Oh, gym. I used to work out. I used to power lift, so I was kind of like a gym rat too. And so all the bruising was just the gym, the bars, the lifts, whatever, whatever. But yeah, so it's 26 is when I walked away, and that's how long it took, brother. That's how long it took for me to be strong enough to walk away and not go back.
Uh, I I just I don't I'm a loss for words, having been in such a different path and a different road and different
Mhm.
circumstances. So that 22 to 26, 27 years old, you were in basic and then tech school and then doing your drive, and then you're able to cut ties, and now you're on the path to Chief Kelly. I mean, that,
Woo.
so many people in the military never make, even the lifers, certainly the first termers like me or second termers, but the lifers, I mean, to make chief, that's incredible for anybody And then you compound that achievement with English as a second language, the 1,500-mile walk to get here to learn that second language, the survival of the toxic marriage. Um, I I don't know. I feel like I need to fly out and give you this giant hug and
Erica needs a hug.
and I feel like I need the hug. I need to like get some of that osmosis. Like, what an achievement! What I mean, just astonishing for me to hear this. I mean, I have the show notes here and a brief bio, but I mean, we're peeling back layers of an onion that I didn't even know existed. So
But that's us
it
though,
is.
right? Yeah, I mean they see your success today, they see you today, and they just say, oh, how lucky is he?
Mm-mm.
Well, what about work behind that
Yeah,
luck,
yeah,
right? Or who does he know that got him that break?
right.
So usually people, and I think we all do to a point, we superficially look at what's going on. And if we, because we're the ones, if we don't share our story, then no one knows the layers. No
Right.
one knows that success that we can just be proud of, that success that we can say to someone else, you can do it too, was paved with many little stones, right? Stepping stones of failure, mistakes, redos, and sometimes regret, right? That road is paved with a lot of pain
Indeed.
to get to little points in life of little sparks, like the birth of a child, a marriage that's healthy, uh, a career, a promotion,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your question was, what was your question about
I
me and becoming a chief? What was the question?
just congratulations.
Oh, oh,
Not really a question, just sort of an admiration
oh,
for
thank
making that.
you.
How many different? Well, did you stay at Luke your whole career?
No, no, no.
Okay.
I Luke was my beloved starting point of the military. And I say beloved because I'm telling you, those people gave me what I needed to breathe again, to grow. They're the ones that said, get a CCAF. They're the ones that said, you have so much potential. Every time I did something, they would celebrate it like if I was a 1 year old, taking my first steps. They're like, look at Ericka, she's so cute. And they just fed me. And I say that because my second assignment was at Travis Air Force Base.
Okay.
So I went from Luke, very healthy, very nurturing, to Travis, who was very cold and very offish. And officers over here and enlisted over here, you are what? You're a senior airman? You're stop talking. You're completely empty. You don't know anything. So I'm like, hey, what happened to me? Right. So I share this because if Travis would have been my first base, Travis would have reinforced what I have been told all my life.
Mm, wow.
And I would have been a one termer. But I knew what good was. Remember,
Right.
before I didn't know what good was. Now I knew what good was. Luke was good for me. And I was exposed to really good leaders. So when I got to Travis, when I saw ego and politics and stupidity and ignorance and all that stuff, then I'm like, this is just a storm.
Yeah.
This is not permanent. You know, I've been through worse. Thank you so much. And I just lived that chapter.
Okay.
I learned. Don't
Sure.
get me wrong. I learned and I met amazing people and I did really cool things. By then I was flying airback. So amazing. But leadership, questionable. And then from Travis, I moved to Southern California. So March, I don't know if you're familiar with March. Now it's March Air Reserve Base, but before it was March Air Force Base.
No.
Um, yeah, that became Hop Arnold. That was Hop Arnold's kind of like gig when he was making decisions on how to win a war. But anyway, March became the base where I spent the most time in.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Um, I can assume in the airvac community, you guys work pretty closely together all
Mhm.
the time. There had to have been some shenanigans going on there with the crew, whether it was the airvac crew or the flight crew. Um, can you remember a time where you were involved, whether it was you leading the charge in the shenanigans, or perhaps where you where you were
Look at
just a
me. Never. Me?
oh, come on, come on,
Never.
chief, come on.
No. Yeah.
There has to
Well,
be.
well, maybe not in Iraq, but I was my first deployment was Desert Storm, Desert Shield.
Okay.
So, and we deployed, which is kind of cool because we've been, training, and here's this thing, and I'm going to be deployed, and my order said that I was going to be gone for 2 years, and I'm like, yes, and I remember getting on the plane, and it was my birthday, and the plane's taking off, and I'm like, it kind of like reality just hit me like I am excited to go to war.
Mm.
Like what's wrong with me? Like what is wrong with this picture of me like yes? And so it just kind of like reality just hit me. But this is what happened. One time because we would fly out of different countries in Europe and also the Middle East. We were in England, and I don't know if it was Mildenhall or Lakenheath, but but I just want you to picture this. I'm from a tropical country, live in California, lived in Nevada, so cold weather, and I
Not so
don't,
much.
right? We don't mix. So we're in England, cold, like really cold,
Yeah.
and we go off base to eat, and we're coming back. We're Charlie, so that means that ID card, and you better be on your toes, and you better remember your social security number, right? Well, I, I, Chief Kelly, is looking at where we're sleeping, which is right there.
Hmm.
And I'm also looking at a fence right here. And we're looking at the gate way over there. And then so we have to walk all the way to the gate and then all the way back to the building. Do you
I
kind
see
of
where this.
picture?
Yeah, I see where this
I'm
might be
like,
going.
and I'm looking at, there's like maybe six of us. And I go, look at the fence is like right here, like 3 feet tall. And then they're like, yeah, let's go to I'm like, come on, let's do it. It's like, you know, our room is right there. So I was an influencer,
Uh,
and I influenced everyone to jump over that fence, right? And I would say maybe not even a minute, after we jumped the fence, we're flat on the ground with like our face on the ground
yeah.
being pushed on the ground
Okay.
with dogs and at the time M16s, right?
Hmm.
And I'm like, what just happened? And I remember being in this room, and the first sergeant's gonna be called, and it was just, and I'm like, how did I do that? I mean, right? And everyone's like, everyone, but this is what happened. Everyone's going, what Ericka said, right?
Yeah.
And then that made the first sergeant really, really mad with everybody else. Like, oh, so if she would have said blah blah blah, you would have done it
Hmm.
anyway, right? So then people just like, well, just take responsibility, right? You jumped the fence too. And then obviously, um, I don't remember the consequences because I was just petrified that I, that I was putting handcuffs and dragged from the snow, and
Gosh.
it was just bad.
So
It
there
was
was
just
snow on the
horrible.
ground too.
Of
Of
course,
course.
it was just nasty, and there I am trying to. The only thing I wanted, the only thing I was thinking is like fireplace, warm, indoors, and it just turned out to be like one of the longest nights of my military career.
Well, obviously, it didn't put too much of a damper on your, climbing of the ladder. So that's good.
Well, I think that this is maybe the third time in my whole career that I tell that story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So, so
I don't
you,
think I don't think, like a lot of people now know about my horrible marriage and, that I'm an immigrant, all that. But this little story here, I don't tell that story often at
well,
all.
folks, you heard it here. Knock and Talk exclusive.
Exclusive story. Oh my gosh, yeah, it was just hilarious.
Oh gosh. So what was life like in the desert during the first Gulf War?
Um, it was um it was fast. Remember that little conflict
The
or war.
Days or something.
Like what? My and I'm like, no, 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 you can't send me home.
No, 2 years.
My orders say 2 years. I'm staying here for 2 years. So yeah, so it was hilarious. But because I was a medic, we and ground medic at that. It was just we just took care of the people that were coming in. Most of the patients that we got to see were either soldiers or Marines, and they were burnt. We saw a lot of burn patients, and we also saw, forgive me for saying this publicly, a lot of sports injuries
Yeah. Yeah.
because there was a lot of us, and there was
Nothing
we
else to
thought,
do. Yeah.
yeah, hmm,
I can see
yep,
that. I can
hmm.
see that.
But that deployment gave me a really nice view of international militaries, gave me a nice view of airvac. So I'm like, oh, why am I in this little hospital? I want to be on that plane, right? So it just gave me a different way of looking at different opportunities of me still serving and doing something super cool.
So speaking of serving and super cool, you've got some accolades here that I have. Um, the Command Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force.
Yeah, that was an amazing
Wow.
assignment.
Wow. So
Boom.
so not just Master Sergeant or Senior Master or Chief Master, but Command Chief Master. Wow.
There you have it.
Um, t- 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 who?
So it's kind of
That's
cool. Let me just say this, and
yes.
then let's go back to the ground. But
Okay. Okay.
let me float for
You
a minute
should
and just like,
absolutely go ahead.
but okay. But it's so awesome to think about this, okay? Because to make chief, right? It's and I don't know what the percentage are now, but it's before 1% of the enlisted force makes it to be a chief, and out of that 1% makes it to command chief. So I became uh, one a 1%er, and then I became a 1% of that 1%. But I was also a matchcom command chief. So out of all the command chiefs, because there's a lot, believe me, even though it's a 1%er of the 1%, there's still a lot of them. But out of all those chiefs, I became an even smaller percentage because I was a matchcom command chief. So if you look at the enlisted pyramid, I was. It's so amazing. I mean, it's like I'm telling you, it's like, whoa,
It is
how did
whoa.
that happen? I ended up being one of the top 10 enlisted for the whole Air Force. And because the Air Force is broken into the active duty, reserve, and guard, I was part of that triad because I represented the whole reserve component. So I was, in one world, I was top three, and in another world, I was top 10.
And just a few steps away from Chief Master of the Air Force. I mean, you were
Yeah.
just
So teammates. So yes. So when I'm saying that exclusive room is, those 10 chiefs plus the chief master sergeant of the Air Force, always there, always. So it was this crowd of, 11, 12 chiefs, kind of looking at what the Air Force is going to look like in 25, 50 years. And that's an amazing way of looking at someone's journey.
it is.
Hmm.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Float here for just a little bit. Just, I mean, it's an amazing story. What was the worst airplane ride in your career? Would you what airframe was your least favorite and why?
Um, I don't think I have a worst favorite. I started, and that tells you how old I am, right? I started, my primary airframe was the C-141, retired
Okay.
many, many moons ago.
Yeah.
Then, we, because we were airvac, we flew a lot of airframes. The KC-135, the 130s, the C9s out of Japan. So anything that had wings and we could put a pigeon in, we kind of took over that plane for a little bit anyway. And then my last plane was the C-17. So my favorite plane for sure. The first love, the 141, nicest, beautiful machine, the C-17. And if I was going to have, I don't know, it's just that it's almost like your kids,
Oh, come on,
right?
Chief.
It's almost like your kids. You love them all, and they're all different, and you're like, oh, that annoys me about you, but I still love you.
Oh,
Um, the 130, no bathroom.
no. And jump
That's
seats. And only jump
that's
seats.
yeah, that's not good for people
Anything.
that people that look like me, right? And and slow.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like, are we there yet? No, we are not. But again, I'm looking at that. But does it do amazing things on the ground? And can you make it, instead of a hospital, can you make it the whole 130 is this big machine gun that can
Right.
destroy the world?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah. So
The
I don't know. I don't know. I just, I, I'm telling you, my blood is Air Force. My blood is military. And was my career perfect? Negative, good, bad, and ugly. But for me to be in your room today, right, be in this setting and talk about 32 and a half years and talk about becoming a one percenter, cool,
Way
right?
cool.
But it doesn't take away that it's a journey. It doesn't take away that there are people out there that say, and maybe this came very evident when I was hired as a special agent, right? When I became law enforcement. But there's also those, and I'm sure you have it, and the audience has naysayers. We all
Mm.
have naysayers, and it's, you're not going to do that, you can't do that, and then you do it, and then it's like, oh, and then we go back to what I said earlier. Oh, well, someone gave you a break. It had nothing to do with hard work. It had nothing to do with you meeting standards. Someone's giving you a break. So you're always going to have that, right? So,
Well, that's a
like,
great segue
okay,
into that next section in
okay.
your overall career.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
were you still in the Air Force when you were picked up and became a special agent, or did you retire? Okay, so you were still weekend warrioring, if
Hmm. Hmm.
while
Yeah,
you. Okay.
yeah, no, I was able to navigate chunks of time in active duty, in chunks of time. So yeah, so I was able to navigate active duty and reserve time. So
Okay.
overall 32 years plus in the Air Force,
Okay.
in and out of active duty. And in the military, I mean, not the military, law enforcement, Homeland, or Department of Justice at the beginning, I did 27 years.
Wow. Okay.
So Air Force started first, and then by the time I applied to become a special agent, I already had my CCIF, yes, and I had my bachelor's in criminal justice. I applied, got the job, and continued to uh, not ride but walk those two paths, one military and the other one law enforcement.
That
Mhm.
um, had to be complicated at sometimes. Uh,
Bring it.
yeah. Well, I mean, with with your attitude and uh, success rate of overcoming all the adversities, having two full-time jobs, no big deal. Whatever. I walked 1,500 miles and whatever. No biggie. No
Like
biggie.
when people go, it's gonna be hard. I go, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
no worries,"
And
because it depends on the definition of hard,
sure.
right? Yeah, like I got it. Thank you.
Um,
I got your mug, by the way.
oh, thanks. They are not a sponsor, but I'll go ahead and I'll plug them. It's a combat mug, and it's a metal frame, and
It
it's
looks like it.
basically like an M4 style. You can put a handle one side, and they make silly optics, and for those people that like to put furniture on their guns.
Hmm.
Anyway, don't drink hot coffee in this because it's metal, and even though the handle's detached, it's still the heat transfers over to the handle. So cold
Well, it looks like
cold drinks
it
only.
can kick ass.
It is a BA mug, and
Hmm. Hmm.
thanks, Mom, for my Christmas present. Um, uh, Now, tell me, what did the $6 million man have to do with, or was there
Oh,
any influence out of the TV show $6 Million Man to lead you into both the military and law enforcement? Did I lose you? Hey, you're back.
you froze.
No, you froze.
No, you froze. I just
I
stayed put.
I
I'm like, I'm sure he'll be back.
I I, I thought I asked the wrong question. Oh my goodness. That we get her back. All right, you there?
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
This whole time I've been here when you're like, we lost her.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh goodness. Um. Well, that's really weird. Very
And
strange.
so I saw you. You froze for a little bit, and then you left completely, and then you came back, and then you're like, oh, she's not here. I'm like, I'm here. But you know what? I do see a live button now. Are we live?
No, that's just uh, if I were to be simulcasting. So it
Okay.
was there the whole time. It just,
It was before?
yeah. Um, StreamYard's acting up today, obviously.
Yeah.
I've had problems with StreamYard in the past, acting up and being finicky. Um, but we shall adapt and overcome, right? That's what we
And
do.
overcome. Mm-hmm.
So back to $6 Million Man. Steve Steve Austin? Not Steve Austin.
No, not Steve Austin.
Steve.
Lee Mayer. Lee Major?
Yes, but
No.
his name, it is Lee Majors. But
Okay.
I thought his name in the show was Steve something or another.
Oh, I don't remember. I really don't remember because um in Central America, when we were kids, there was only one house in the block that we lived that had electricity, but
Oh,
not
okay.
electricity like with light switches, because that was new to me when we came to the States. I don't know, but they had this tiny, tiny little black and white TV, and maybe once a week they would allow the kids from the neighborhood to sit on the floor, dirt floor, right, and for us to watch. And that's the show we watched, the $6 Million Man. And I thought it was just like the best.
Yeah.
And United States and these amazing men and amazing powers. And so even though I was an angry 12-year-old walking to the United States, um, one little spark of hope was that the $6 Million Man's gonna be in the United States. Yes, 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 yes. And so I think that, and it wasn't just me; it was my brothers too. I was not the only one, going crazy. But I remember, when we got to the United States, we ended up Linwood, Compton area in Southern California.
Okay.
Again, not the best environment for three little primitive kids from Central America, but there we were getting beat up every day. But we had the $6 Million Man, and we were so happy until wah 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 in English.
Oh no.
We watched it in Spanish in
Oh, okay.
Guatemala, and then here's this weird voice coming out of this guy. I'm like, that's not his voice. What what just happened to my
Oh,
hero?
I'm gypped.
It was
I'm getting gypped.
I know it was good and it was bad. But thank you
Uh,
for bringing that memory up.
oh yeah, yeah. So $6 Million Man was one of my favorites too. Growing up,
I
um,
loved it.
as kids, we would run around in the backyard and we would make that while we
And
ran
we knew,
slow.
yeah, we knew that it was like,
Oh yeah,
20 miles instead of the slow motion.
yes. I just ran around the block 6 times, but all you saw was the slow motion.
Yes. Yes, I'm too fast for you.
Oh, so what crazy adventures did you get involved in as a federal agent?
Crazy adventures. Well, I was selected a lot of times to do not long undercover, but short undercover because of the military, and my personal life didn't allow um, for me to go months into an undercover setting. So I did a lot of undercover, and so it gave me the opportunity to work with FBI and ATF and DEA. So all those amazing agencies that at one point, like I always wanted to be a DEA agent, and it just didn't work out. I was in Egypt. I was in Egypt when the DEA said, "Hey, we got an academy date for you," and I go, "Awesome! I will call you as soon as I get back from my deployment." And they're like, "No, we have an academy date for you now. If you don't take it, you have to start the whole process again when you get back." Ah,
Ah,
so
womp
man,
womp
so sometimes I
womp.
tell people I went to school, I went to college, I did everything, criminal justice, everything for me to be a DEA agent. Everything. And my dream job calls me and says, "We want you." And on the same phone call, as I'm hanging up the phone in Giza, I know that it's not mine because they call me with an academy date. I said, "I'm deployed. I can't." They said, "By the time you get back, you have to restart the process." Click.
That had to
But
be
it was,
heartbreaking.
it was. You know how you work for something
Hmm.
and that's it. That's it. And you get there. I mean, you get there, and then you're at the door, and then they close the door. But when I got back from that deployment, I just put in for different jobs. I ended up working for immigration. I never thought, right? I'm an immigrant. I never thought I would work for immigration, but I ended up being an agent for INS, which um, ended up to being a pretty good gig. There was a lot of really bad people taking advantage of really needy people, and I was a factor on either rescuing people, stopping just nasty. I mean, there's people out there that will sell their mother for a dime. And I was, sometimes I was the case agent. Sometimes I was the little piece that did a little bit of undercover to put someone in jail. Sometimes, so again, in law enforcement, we play so many different roles. And looking back, it's been pretty amazing. Not easy to be in law enforcement, but pretty amazing missions. Yeah.
I can only imagine. Um, the undercover work. So I was in law enforcement for about 15 years. I got an
Mm.
opportunity to do some UC work in a small town,
Yeah.
and I thought, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be cool, and I ended up getting involved in a meth ring in the small community, and learning all about the pain that the players were causing with their families, you
Yeah.
know, and being involved in way, I don't want to say emotionally, but you give a little bit of yourself into that role because you got to be believable, and
Of course.
so um, I can only imagine on a grander scheme of things in a human trafficking scenario or a coyote scenario. Um,
Yeah.
I would assume there's not too many funny stories coming out of those assignments.
Ugh.
No, those.
No,
Uh,
but interesting
okay.
because that they wire you up. They wire you up, and sometimes you have the case agent saying, "Don't forget to ask this. We need this for the search warrant." All the you have like three people as you're being wired telling you, "Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget." And I remember downtown LA, I have to meet some bad guys at a park, and I have plenty of people. I have plenty of people backing me up. We have video, we have audio, cool. But we're talking 90s, right? Not today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, anyway, I would meet the bad guys and do the deal and come out, super hyped because you know that adrenaline, right?
Mhm.
So you come out and you're like, you want to high five everybody, and everybody's just staring at you, and you're like, oh, what happened? And they're like, and I'm like, did you get this, and did you get that, and did you
Yes.
we got them. And everybody's like, we lost audio and we lost video, and you're like, and you at the moment you don't think, right? But now today I think, I mean, there's so many times that it would have just been dead,
Right.
and that would have been it, right? So yeah, so those little things would happen quite a bit. I remember doing something for the FBI, hilarious but not hilarious at the time, and in which there's an undercover in a warehouse, and I am an undercover outside of the warehouse. They had a bunch of stolen stuff, and the bad guys are already, they have that sixth sense. They know, right?
Yeah.
So they see me coming out of a car, and they, because of my size and everything's like, I could see it in their body language. They just relax, like, oh, she's no threat. So I'm doing my part, and I'm thinking the FBI is hearing me and watching me. So I'm doing my part, and then this other undercover guy from the warehouse comes out, and we're not in sync in what we're telling the bad guy.
Oh no.
It
Oh.
was, it was, it was one of those moments in your heart stops beating. Like, oh my gosh. So the bad guy says something um, to this other undercover to verify something that I had said earlier. And this cop, he was an LAPD guy, says something completely different. So then the bad guy just turns and sees me. And I'm sure I did a micro movement, body, something. I'm sure that somehow my body reacted to the stupidity of that other dude. And so the bad guy now is looking right at my shirt, looking at what I'm wearing. And then he's like, you know what I told you about? That's not true. I really don't know. I really don't know what the stuff is, who owns that stuff. And he's just
Wow.
backtracking everything that he just said earlier. And then he grabs me and he get in the car. And obviously, if you're undercover and someone's pushing you inside the back seat of a car, not good for you.
Not good.
uh, so as he grabs me by the arm and starts pushing me into the car, I'm like, hey, what the hell, what's going on? And then the cop, the other guy, he realizes that he triggered something, right, that he said something wrong. But at the time, my brain is where, forgive me, anybody that watches this and knows
Let
any
it
FBI
fly,
agent,
Chief. Let it fly.
but but I'm like panicky a little, and I'm like, I don't have a gun, right? This dude is tall, big. Where are you, FBI? If you're listening, that I'm under stress,
Hmm.
come and rescue me. So maybe they were, but those seconds that it took for the FBI to respond and to, surround the area and all that stuff, for me anyway, took forever,
Yes.
ever, ever, ever.
Yes.
And I ended up getting arrested with the bad guys. And I remember when the FBI rolls and the doors open up and everybody's, has their guns up, and one of the supervisors has a shotgun. And he looks at me to make eye contact with me. But when he makes eye contact with me, his shotgun is like right here. And I'm thinking, this is the closest I've been to a shotgun on the other side.
On the business end.
Yes. And I'm thinking, you're a supervisor. I love you, but point the shotgun someplace else because you're a supervisor. You might not know, one false step. But yeah. Moments like those are always fun to remember.
Yeah, I have a couple of those in my story portfolio that we called it, as I'm sure you probably did too, the pucker factor, where nothing's going right and you're sucking
Oh,
your underoos up, and well, we have a mutual friend, Dr. Robert Garcia,
yeah.
and he wanted me to let you know
Oh
that
boy. A message from Rob. Okay,
a
let me.
mess. Yes,
I'm
yes.
ready.
All right.
Tell me.
The the steak dinner is being forwarded. Yeah. So apparently, there's a story somewhere in there where there was a steak dinner that was given to Rob, and it meant the world to him at a time where he needed a steak dinner, and that dinner was bought by you, and um, he told me about it, and he's actually more or less, figuratively speaking, given me a steak dinner and some help that he's given me along the way. So I'm going to continue that tradition and forward the steak dinner at the first available opportunity, just so that you know that you started a train of steak dinners.
Well, can I share something about Rob?
Absolutely.
He's pretty amazing, pretty humble, brilliant,
Yes.
at what he does. But in the military, at one point, and I think all of us go through this of maybe I can do this, and he took risk, right? He took risk to say, this is what I need to have a complete packet. And that's what I tell people now. Take risk, and if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, awesome.
Hmm.
It shouldn't change who you are. But I remember Rob taking risk, putting that packet together, and that did not work, the position that he was applying for. But who cares, everyone? Because of that no, he was able to concentrate someplace else. He was able to navigate and pivot, and now be, I believe, right? I believe that if that opportunity would have been a yes, that his life would be different today than it
Oh,
is now.
yeah.
So sometimes the no's that we get in our lives are the ones that are truly those pathways that are guiding us to what really our purpose is someplace else. And I truly believe that Rob is one of those individuals that is living his purpose right now as a reservist and also as an entrepreneur.
Yes, he is. Um, and I agree. A genius in his
Mhm.
own right. Very
Yeah.
very talented man. Which brings us to yet another segue, and that is in purpose. Chief, tell us what you're doing these days.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So purpose is, I guess, a pretty awesome word. I just early this year released a book with the title Persistence. And I wrote the book with another retired command chief, and left for fate. And Lefford and I, we were brainstorming. Right? He comes from the South, African American. So he had plenty of stories. I had plenty of stories about our childhood and also about the military. And then we thought, why just let's take us out of the equation a little bit and let's invite other chiefs. So we interviewed some chief master sergeants of the Air Force, some, the space chief. We made persistence almost like an acronym in which each word is a chapter, and each word, like let's say persistence, the P, the first one is passion, and we gave the chapter passion to a chief. And then that chief talks about their journey and their journey and their journey and their journey. And all the stories in there link to humanity. All the stories link all of us to someone in our lives being an angel, pivoting our lives to, like some of the chiefs talk about, I was a mess. And I had a tech sergeant, right? When I was a young airman, I had a tech sergeant that said, "Son, this is what you need to do," and I was able to be big enough to listen and pivot and change. So it's pretty awesome, pretty awesome. It is Air Force ish, but it's the message is for anybody. It's just that in the cover you have me with black hair and in uniform, and you have this impressive African American chief, but in the inside, it's just a bunch of us sharing our own stories.
Where
Kind of
can
cool.
yeah, absolutely cool. Where can people find a copy of the book?
Well, they can go through Amazon, just
Okay.
Kindle. So they have a Kindle paperback and hardcover. But what I'm trying to do right now, it's not ready. But if someone wants to send me an email or visit my website and tell me, what I'm doing right now is if anybody wants a signed copy, I'm creating a I'm creating a landing page in which if you want a signed copy, I will order the book. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I will order the book, sign it, and then send it to you.
Okay. All right.
So you wouldn't go to Amazon to pay for the book. You will go through my website to pay for the book because you'll get it directly from me.
Okay. And
Mhm.
tell us where that website is and an email address, and then any other way you want people to contact you.
Yeah, so I am very active in LinkedIn.
Okay.
So LinkedIn is always a good venue. My website is Ericka Kelly Enterprises. The name of my business, ErickaKellyEnterprises.com.
.com. Okay. All
Yes.
right.
And for an email, the email is kind of complicated. I don't know. what I was thinking, but it is Ericka.Kelly at EK, which is my two initials, and then the word enterprises. So Ericka.Kelly at ekenterprises.co.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have all those links somewhere down here in the comment section for people to, down here,
Thank you.
for people to quickly jump over to all those
Mm-hmm.
different places to find you. I have thoroughly enjoyed this interview and getting to know yet another awesome person, and quite humbled by your story. Is there anything that you would like to leave us with before we bid our adieus?
I would say keep adding value to others, keep giving more than you receive. Um, I think it was Zig Ziglar that said, right, if you give people what they need, you in return will get even more than you deserve. And that's where I'm at right now. Forgiveness. That mother that left me behind, abandoned me, brought me to the state by force, kicked me out when I was 16. I take care of her now. She's paralyzed after a stroke, and I love my mom. But
Wow.
it took forgiveness to get there.
Yeah. Wow, what a strong, amazing story.
Yeah.
Chief Kelly, thank you again for coming on the show and sharing some really awesome stories. And
Thank you.
I look forward to getting my signed copy
Woo woo.
of
Awesome.
Persistence. Yeah. So, well, folks, this has been the 18th episode of the Knock and Talk Show, and our guest, Chief Master Sergeant, almost of the Air Force, Ericka Kelly.
That's awesome.
Chief, thanks again. Be safe, be well, and folks, we'll catch you next time.
The Knock and Talk Show is a certified veteran-hosted podcast. Show your support. Tune in, share,